Hi friends. So the first test in the India South Africa series is over at Eden Garden, and shocking as it may sound, it's South Africa which has finally managed to win a test for the first time in 15 years against India in India, and they are 1-0 up in the series, and by that they have ensured that they are not going to lose this two test series. At best India can draw the series, otherwise South Africa is at the cusp of creating history, because if they can manage to draw or win the second test, they can win a series and they can replicate what New Zealand did exactly a year back by whitewashing India 3-0 in India. So that time it looked an aberration, and Subman Gill, the captain, said that okay, New Zealand had lost the series in Sri Lanka and they were battle hardened, they had played on spinning tracks. We were a little underprepared, and that's why the result went 3-0 in favor of Sri Lanka, but that was an aberration. But now it seems it's no longer an aberration, because this time India was fully prepared after playing two tests against West Indies at home conditions on similar kind of wickets. And when a spinning track was prepared, it seems it was prepared at the behest of Indian team management headed by Gautam Gambhir and Subman Gill. They wanted exactly the kind of pitch as Gautam Gambhir has confirmed in the press conference, and they got a pitch which was turning from the day one. But the problem is that it was turning for both the sides, and India has once again had a lot of overconfidence in their own four-pronged spin attack, and they completely discounted the spinning attack of South Africa, which had Keshav Maharaj, but most importantly they had Harmer. And Harmer had created fantastic impression for South Africa in the recently concluded two test series in Pakistan, where he almost single-handedly won a test match for them, and then managed to ensure that South Africa came out of that tough series against Pakistan on spinning tracks with honors share, and they had ended the series 1-1, and they had created history by managing to come out of a tough series in the subcontinent without losing a series. So when that same South Africa team landed with Babuma fit, their fantastic captain, who has not lost a single test in the entire duration of his captaincy, and before this test he had a 9-win 1-draw record out of first 10 tests as captain, and now it has extended to 10 wins and 1 draw. So he's still unbeaten as a captain. He's a fabulous captain, and he has been a magnificent batter, especially since the time he has taken over captaincy. His batting average has shot up to 57 plus, which is one of the best in the contemporary world cricket. And while the whole world is completely lost in the hype and hoopla around the so-called Fab 4, Fab 3, and about Virat Kohli, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith and Joe Root, people have forgotten to talk about Babuma, who has been so superb just because he represents a country which is not a very high power country, or is not a very high profile country, even though they are the WTC test champions. But they are not a very hyped up country, and there is not much of buzz or broadcasters PR exercise that is replicated there. So that's where he's not much talked about, but his contribution is unmatched, and he once again was there to lead the team. And then they had Harmer, they had Keshav Maharaj, they had also some really a very strong deep batting lineup and a decent bowling lineup. And when India chose to play on a dried up pitch without much water, which had enough of uneven bounce to help seamers also, and then spinners, and also it had some very awkward bounce which was to help bowlers with the kind of craft like Bumrah, and also to some extent Marco Jansen, who has tremendous height advantage for on a pitch like that. And when South Africa won the toss, they elected to bat. It seemed to be a huge benefit or advantage for them, but then they blew it up by getting all out for 159. That was not a pitch to get dismissed for 159 after you win a toss and bat first on the first day. Yes, it had a little help for the spinners and seamers, but South Africa should have made at least 200 on that pitch, and they surrendered the initiative to India by getting dismissed for 159. And then when India batted, it seemed that India would try to bat only once because the pitch would get increasingly difficult in terms of spin and uneven bounce. But once again, India did what South Africa did, and in spite of the fact that India managed to have a slender lead, but that was not the total India was looking for. India getting all out for 189 on that pitch was unpardonable, especially considering India was to bat fourth. And when the second time South Africa batted, then within first couple of hours, India ensured that that 30 runs lead was really handy and was perhaps decisive, because India reduced South Africa at the end of day 2 to 91 for 7. That means with a 58 runs lead, they only had 3 wickets in left. But then they still had Babuma. And today the date came and it completely turned the momentum in favor of South Africa because of only one player, the charismatic captain, the captain of real pedigree, Babuma, who refused to give up, who refused to surrender. And in Bosch, he had an able partner who was ready to collect singles and pick up useful runs and try to build up an innings without knowing how much they could score or whether that would be enough to win the match. But they were staying in the present and they were trying to be determined to make it as difficult for India as possible rather than just giving up. And because of that self-belief, self-determination and grit and resilience, they started adding runs, and every added run became a matter of headache for India, and ultimately they managed to take the total to a formidable one on that pitch of 153. It might look very below par, especially considering India had a lead of 30 runs, but the fact that they were 91 for 7 and they could add around 62 runs for the last 3 wickets, it shows how much mental toughness they had, how much self-belief they had, and what a tremendous exhibition of not giving up by their batters or the tail-enders, especially Bosch and Babuma, the captain. And ultimately Babuma stayed not out on 55, and that 55 he scored by staying on the pitch against unplayable deliveries, and he totally consumed 136 deliveries to stay unbeaten. We are almost talking about 23 overs he batted individually on that minefield of a pitch. Let's not forget that India in the 4th innings lasted just 35 overs, whereas Babuma on that pitch consumed 23 overs and stayed unbeaten. That puts in perspective not only his runs but also his resilience, his determination and his quality of batting. And because he stayed for so long, he could help South Africa to score 153, and that gave a somehow remote chance for South Africa with a lead of 123 to go for a miracle. And yes, the miracle was delivered. First, Marco Jansen did the job by reducing India to almost nothing for 2 wickets down, and that put tremendous pressure on India, especially knowing that that effectively meant India were actually 3 down because Shubman Gill was retired hurt and he was not going to come back. He was ruled out of this test match. So when your opening bowler to do that kind of a damage, to reduce you to almost nothing for 3, that means the game is more or less evenly matched. And from that moment onwards, South Africa pounced on India, never allowed India to break free on that pitch, never allowed India to breathe easy, never allowed the pressure to go off. And in Harmer, they had that kind of a bowler who has been absolutely a match winner in this test match with his bowling figures of 8 wickets he has taken in this match. He has taken 3 beautiful catches, and he showed that his performance against Pakistan in Pakistan was no fluke. He is a player who is almost 37-38 years old. He has played very little cricket because of the contract he had signed to play in England, in their county, where he could not represent his native country because of the Kolpak agreement, and that's where he lost out international cricket. But remember, he has taken almost 1,000 plus wickets in first class cricket, so he has tremendous control, he has tremendous experience, and he has tremendous maturity, and he knew how to play, how to bowl without taking too much pressure, and how to bowl in the exact line and length. And he delivered once again today, and his bowling was the decisive factor after Marco Jansen did the initial damage. And even though Keshav Maharaj had an off day and off test match, where he hardly could do much damage. In fact, in that over where Akshar Patel hit him for 16 runs, there it seemed that maybe India was lucky that Keshav Maharaj got the ball to bowl to a left-hander. So a left-hand bowler bowling to a left-hander batsman like Akshar, who has tremendous hitting ability, he was trying to run away with the match by hitting those 16 runs. And India had come close to the target, but then in the same over, it was Keshav Maharaj, even though he was lackluster, but he managed to take the vital wicket of Akshar, and that was brilliant catch taken by, again, who else but Babu Ma, their captain, who kept his cool, who never allowed pressure to get over him. He never panicked, and he took a magnificent catch under pressure to dismiss Akshar. And in the very next ball, Keshav Maharaj delivered by taking Siraj's wicket to dismiss India for 93 runs and achieve a very convenient, comfortable 30 runs lead win. And that means that South Africa deservedly have won the test match. They are 1-0 up, and they will go to the second test in Assam, knowing that they not only have a chance to avoid a series defeat, they can now hope for a rare whitewash by winning that test match, because now pressure is on India. India would not be knowing what kind of pitch to ask for, because they would be scared to go for a spinning pitch with the fear that what happens if they again lose the toss. And now South Africa has the arsenal and the confidence to beat them on their own strength, that is on the spinning track. On the other hand, if they go for a flat wicket, then the match may end up in a very dull draw, and then any which way South Africa would go with one victory and win the series 1-0 and carry the precious WTC points. So I think India would have that kind of a predicament about not knowing what kind of strategy to go in terms of pitch. And if they go for a seamers track, and if Rabada comes back fit, because Rabada was not there, that was one big advantage India allowed to slip through. Now in the next match, if Rabada comes back fit, and if Subman Gill is still not fit, then India would be scared to go on a green pitch also, or a grassy pitch also. So in all counts, India would be little anxious and South Africa would be confident. And now there is a brilliant scenario which has come up for them to not only win the series, but win the series 2-0. But we will find it out in a few days' time when the second test starts. In the meantime, we have to keep an eye on the most precious WTC table, because everybody is fighting for that points tally, which will help them to reach the next WTC final. And South Africa has had the toughest start to this new WTC cycle as the defending champion, because they have started with the two toughest series. First one to play against Pakistan in Pakistan on spinning tracks, and now the next one is again playing formidable Indians, one of the favorites Indians in India, which is considered to be a fortress for India, again on spinning track against this star-studded Indian lineup. But they have delivered. They have delivered and they have been brilliant. They shared the series 1-1 against Pakistan, and now in the next series they have already taken 1-0 up. So that means they have achieved 2 wins out of first 3 test matches in the new WTC cycle. That has taken them to the second position in the WTC table, below Australia, because Australia have won all their matches in the new WTC cycle. India in the meanwhile have lost now 3 tests in this new WTC cycle. They lost 2 in England in that 5 test series, and now won the first test against South Africa. So now they have slipped to 4th in the WTC cycle. And remember, the West Indies series and this South Africa series were supposed to be at home, and India should have tried to maximize the points tally, but they have already lost 1, and that has ensured that they have been pushed down to the 4th slot, which is not a very comfortable position. After that, they will be travelling away. They will go to New Zealand for a away test series, and also to Sri Lanka for away test series, before hosting Australia for a very crucial 5 test series at home. So India is not in the ideal position. They are in the 4th position, but there is still a long way to go before we know where India finally ends up and what is India's prospect for the WTC table and the WTC final. So for that we will have to wait, but in the meantime, credit and kudos to South Africa for a tremendous performance and a brilliant victory. They deserve it, and commiserations to India, and let's wait and watch how India hits back in the second test in Guwahati. Thank you.